One of the most tragic but untold stories of Mushoku Tensei's anime adaptation is the Bikini warrior Vierra and the girl in robes Shierra. While at face value, the presence of a character like the Bikini warrior can set off the uninitiated outsider. Oh my gosh, objectifying women. How dare this writer? However, when you know the truth behind these two sisters, by gosh, they're actually right. That's the whole point. The whole point is to be objectified. Now. Let me explain. Not that explaining to anybody offended by that is going to change their minds, but let me explain. Explain not just the meaning behind the objectification of the Bikini warrior Vierra, but also the untold stories behind the two of them in the novel series. Two devoted members of Paul's search and rescue squad, and honestly the crucial and irreplaceable roles they play at his side. Welcome back to yet another skipped content video for the Mushoku Tensei anime series, where we deep dive into the novel series and give you a deeper context to the characters and the stories that unfortunately the anime skipped in its adaptation. With all that said, let's explore Vierra and Shierra. We first meet Vierra and Shierra when Rudeus is seeking to free a boy that he suspects is being kidnapped in Milis. Upon entering the warehouse, he is spotted and he disguises himself with a parapantsu. He introduced himself as Rejured of Dead End, as a habit, before reinforcements shuffle in. One of them is a female warrior in a bikini outfit, later identified as Vierra, while the other one is a female mage in a robe, later identified as Shierra. The bikini lady drew her sword and rushed towards him. Meanwhile, the robed magician in the rear took up her staff. Oh crap, the bikini lady's chest was swinging like crazy every time she took a step. Rudeus thought to himself, don't let them jiggle that vigorously, girl. They're gonna break free. It was honestly bizarre, if nothing else. You'd expect a bikini armor to keep your chest firmly in place, so it wouldn't cause you any problems in battle. Her whole outfit seemed to serve no practical purpose whatsoever. Oh man, just look at those things go. Right, left, right. They were drawing closer, swaying back and forth. For a moment, they drooped down, then bounced back towards his. All of a sudden, he noticed the bikini lady was swinging her sword directly at his face. Tumbling reflectively backwards, he managed to avoid a strike by a hair's breadth. That was close. Damn it, this girl fights dirty. Was she wearing that as a deliberate distraction? At this point, he noticed a faint voice mumbling something across the room. Converge where thou wilt, and issue forth a single pure stream thereof. Oh crap, the mage was casting a spell. Someone was about to shoot a water ball at him. Thinking fast, he extended his hand in the general direction of the magician. His spell of choice was Stone Wall. The best way to ward off water-based magic was to get some nice, absorbent sand and dirt in its way. As he rushed to cast the spell, he quickly glanced over and found the mage putting her staff right at him, just about to launch her attack. In the very instant that she fired off the water ball, his stone wall rose up to meet it. The high-speed projectile burst against the wall with an ear-splitting bang, rather than a splash. Water sprayed in every direction across the warehouse. What was that? From the sound of things, he'd gotten the magician pretty flustered. So, he turned his attention back to the bikini lady. She was at him again. The force of her attack had left her breasts swinging wildly in the air. It looked like they were on the verge of breaking free. He could almost see them. Suddenly, he was pulled back into reality at the last moment by her piercing battle cry. He managed to roll to safety again. This time, he put some more distance between them before jumping to his feet. The bikini lady glared at him, her sword still against the floor where she had struck. She called out, "Stop scuttling like a cockroach, you little pervert." As she spoke, she raised her weapon again, holding it steadily above waist level. She seemed to have given up on overwhelming him with speed and aggression. Instead, she began to close the distance between them, slowly but steadily. Following her lead, he inched backwards. But wait, when she held up her sword like that, her upper arms pushed her bazongas together. That was some impressive cleavage. Ah crap, stop falling in her trap, stupid. How the hell was he supposed to fight in this condition? Neither the warrior nor the magician buddy were especially talented, to be honest. But at this rate, he was never going to take them down. He'd be in trouble if she suffered from some sort of critical wardrobe malfunction. He'd probably be cut to pieces instantly. How had they learned of his one and only weakness? Who sold him out? Damn it. Okay, he had to calm down. He was distracting himself here. Simple as that. This wasn't some deliberate tactic on her part. The question was, what was he going to do about it? If he wanted to turn this into a fair fight, he needed to get her to cover up her chest somehow. And for that matter, her pleasantly plump behind as well. How could I manipulate her to put on some actual clothing? Maybe he could say something to her to try to get her embarrassed. No. If she had chosen that outfit deliberately, that approach might backfire. Gasps. Of course. Now I have it. Rudeus recounted the story of the North Wind and the Sun. The North Wind and the Sun competed against each other on causing a certain traveler to undress. The North Wind tried blowing off her clothes with cold-piercing gusts, but then she just piled on extra layers. The Sun simply warmed her up until she took her clothes off on her own volition. In other words, if he made it nice and hot in here, she'd totally strip off that. No, that's exactly what I don't want. Right, cold. Cold's what was needed here. "You got nowhere to run," she called out. Realizing he was backed against the wall, he held out both palms and casted Icicle Field. It grew bitterly cold throughout the warehouse, as if standing in a refrigerator. He could already see goosebumps on her upper arms. But he wasn't done yet. He then sent a great gust of wind, sending the woman flying back to the entrance. He felt like he might actually catch a cold himself, but he achieved what he was setting out to do perfectly. Shivering and sneezing, the bikini-armored woman frantically gestured to her friend for a coat. He was out of the woods now. Once those breasts were hidden from view, there was no way she'd get the better of him. All that was left was to knock everyone senseless and make a getaway. But that's when their commander Paul arrived. Yes, Rudeus' father arrives and pretty much clears up the situation after having a little fight themselves. Following this, Paul and Rudeus sits down and they catch up on things. As Rudeus was sitting there, he noted the fact that the bikini warrior was standing diagonally from Paul. A pointy mouth, charming face, huge chest, plump bottom, and a thin waist, seemingly in her late teens. Paul had called her Vierra. Rudeus knew that bikini armor wasn't a rare thing in this world. With healing pretty much being present in the world, a lot of people just opted to have lighter protection because you had to keep getting them fixed. He's seen a few of them in the Demon Continent, but none of them were this skimpy. Most of them wore armor over lightweight clothing rather than just bare skin. Rudeus then realized that she had shed that coat that she had put on earlier, which puzzled him. But he wasn't going to complain, he was rather enjoying the eye candy. Suddenly he realized that his eyes met Vierra's, and she gave him a quick wink. He returned to one of his own. At this point, Rudeus explained his whole journey to Paul thus far, Paul at some point becoming angered at him. Vierra tried to stop Paul, putting her hand on his shoulder, asking him to pretty much leave it at that, pointing out the fact that Rudeus is still a young boy. But that only led to Rudeus making a comment about Paul's infidelity, claiming that he was cheating on Zenith and Lilia, having Vierra wear a revealing outfit. Rudeus pointing out that he's wondering when the next moment he's going to have a new brother or sister. This set Paul off, turning from verbal argument into an all-out brawl. At some point during the fight, Shierra even tried to get between them, but was quickly pushed to the side by Paul. Of course, soon after, Norm would enter the room, and the fight would come to an end. Cut forward, Paul is met by Geese. It's the point where they have the conversation about Rudeus, and then eventually Geese explains to Paul that, yes, Rudeus is still a kid. No matter what he thinks, Rudeus is still a kid. After this, Geese leaves, and Vierra confronts Paul, sporting an unusual outfit. Unusual for her, because it made her look like an ordinary city girl, rather than her usual bikini armor. What's with you, girl? Felt like wearing something modest for once? Well, yes. I was worried that what happened earlier might have been my fault. How I dressed might have caused a misunderstanding of the nature of our relationship. Nothing to do with it. Punk took one look at the size of your chest and jumped to his own conclusions. This is when we get, from Paul's perspective, the reason why Vierra dresses the way that she does. The woman had been an ordinary venturer back in Fatoa, but the displacement incident had left her stranded on the Melis continent without any equipment to speak of. She was quickly captured by a gang of bandits who treated her as their plaything. It was the kind of nightmare that would leave most people broken, but she managed to put it behind her through sheer willpower. However, they had also taken in a girl who hadn't bounced back as easily, her sister, Shierra. Even now, Shierra trembled uncontrollably every time a man so much as looked at her, and they had a number of those similar cases in their squad. In order to protect them from unwanted attention, Vierra had started wearing a deliberately skimpy suit of armor to draw male eyes in her direction. She was also the member in their squad that was most adept to comforting and caring for women who'd been subjected to that sort of trauma. As a man with no way of understanding that specific kind of pain, Paul considered her an indispensable part of their team. To be clear, Paul and Vierra didn't have a sexual relationship. The idea was just ridiculous. Paul called out to her again. It wasn't your fault. We clear? Yes, sir. Still looking a bit dejected, Vierra got up and shuffled back over to her table where the other girl was sitting. Following this, Paul makes up with Rudeus, and we get a few scenes that highlight the very dynamic that Shierra and Vierra add to Paul's crew. Additionally, the importance of Shierra's role at his side. As Paul and Rudeus are sitting down catching up on things, talking about the old times, Vierra and Shierra were nearby. Rudeus noticed that Vierra was wearing a normal outfit rather than her usual bikini armor. Eventually, the conversation of leaving the holy country of Melis came up. Paul offered to cover Rudeus' traveling expenses, turning to Shierra. We got some set aside, right? Shierra responded, yes, Mr. Alphonse entrusted us with funds to be used in the event that we locate any of the members of the Boreas family. Evidently, the former family butler of the Boreas family had left Paul with a lump of money intending to ensure a comfortable journey back home for any of Edis's family members who were found in Melis. Right, so that's all yours. Rudeus responded, I see. Well, I'm glad that you didn't blow it all on booze. Why do you think that I put Shierra in charge of the money? For some reason, Paul actually sounded proud of himself. Kind of sad, but Rudeus wasn't going to say anything. How much money is this exactly? Rudeus asked. It's equivalent to 20 king dollars, Shierra responded instantly. Rudeus equated that to 1,000,000 yen, which he yelled out loud. While nobody understood what he was talking about, he admitted in his mind that he had been spending a year and a half pinching pennies. There's one other problem that we have to deal with, actually. Seriously? What is that? Paul responded. Back in the Windport, they wanted a ridiculous amount of money to let Superd on a boat to Millis. I'm not sure how things are at Westport, but I'm sure they'll probably demand a huge fare as well. I don't know if 20 king coins is going to be enough. Ah, right. Paul folded his arms thoughtfully. Rudeus thought surely he wasn't going to suggest leaving reserve behind or anything, but then Paul spoke up again. Shierra, what do they charge to bring a Superd over to the central continent? With a small nod, Shierra promptly replied, 100 king coins. Rudeus thought, had she memorized the fares or something? This girl seemed to be really on top of things. Come to think of it, she did look like the quick-witted secretary type. As Rudeus examined Shierra, their eyes briefly met. She let out a little scream and instantly looked down at the floor. The ex-bikini lady casually stepped in front of her to hide her from view. Rudeus couldn't help but feel hurt. Vierra then spoke up. I'm sorry, but she's a little uncomfortable with eye contact. Could you try not to look at her too much? Okay. Rudeus had gotten his relationship with Paul back to normal, but apparently the other members of his squad still weren't too fond of him. Well, he just had to live with that. Rudeus then asked, why is it always so expensive for a Superd in particular anyways? Shierra spoke up from behind Vierra. It was mainly because of the rules that were established some time ago, back when the persecution of the tribes was at its height. From the tone of her voice, you might have thought this was common knowledge. But even the people working at the checkpoint at the Windport hadn't been able to tell him that. The girl's chest was fairly small, but apparently, she had a massive brain. As they wrapped up the conversation, Paul grinned and turned to Vierra and Shierra. Hey, so what do you think of my little guy? Talk about self-reliant, right? Sure. The two of them looked at each other, smiling awkwardly. Rudeus wasn't really sure what Paul was expecting for them to say. Did he even remember the whole fist fight they had in the bar yesterday? Rudeus then spoke up. Father, you really shouldn't make it a habit of asking young ladies to evaluate your little guy. It might tarnish the reputation of the Grey Rat family. Your dirty jokes aren't helping either, kid. Paul and Rudeus both burst into laughter. The two women in the room, visibly not amused, but you can't please everyone. As Paul left the bar with Vierra and Shierra following closely, Rudeus really felt that he looked like a dirty old man sometimes. Cutting forward, Rudeus drops by the search and rescue headquarters to fill Paul in on his plans. They had the letter that Riger got from Gash Brosh that could be their ticket off the continent. After Norn spotted him and gave him a harsh rejection, he found himself feeling uncomfortable as he waited to see Paul in some sort of waiting room. Before it got too awkward, a familiar woman entered the room and all eyes went on her. It was the bikini armor lady, back to her old, half-naked ways. She spotted Rudeus immediately and walked over. Good morning, he said. Good morning, she replied, with a small smile and a small tilt of her head. Did you need something from us today? Yes, he responded. I'm here to see my father and, he pondered what Paul said her name was. He then apologized. I haven't introduced myself, have I? My name is Rudeus Grey Rat, miss. Rising to his feet, he put one hand to his chest and offered an aristocratic bow. Vierra panicked, her hands fluttering anxiously in the air. Oh, my name's Vierra. I'm a member of Captain Paul's squad. She proceeded to return his bow, offering a truly irresistible view of her cleavage. The girl really was a sight for sore eyes, or even non-sore eyes, honestly. Rudeus at this point had just resolved to cut back on his perverted behavior. So, he didn't want to stare, but he couldn't seem to look away. All his good intentions were meaningless in the face of her chest's gravitational pull. The outfit was just unfair. I'm very sorry that I was so rude the other day. My father's something of a womanizer, so I'm afraid I got the wrong idea. No, it's alright. I can understand why you think that, given how I was dressed. Vierra emphasized her words by shaking her head vigorously. Certain parts of her body also moved as a result. That bikini armor did seem to be fixed in place by some degree, but it wasn't enough to keep her from jiggling as she made sudden movements. Those things were big after all. Oops, he was doing it again. With all effort and will, he managed to tear his eyes away. I'm not sure it's a great idea to hang around a bunch of men in that armor if you can help it, miss. I'd imagine some people might find it a bit distracting. Maybe you should put a cloak over it at least. Vierra smiled awkwardly. I'm sorry, but there's a reason why I wear this. Maybe he was imagining things, but it really felt like a bunch of people were looking over at him all of a sudden. Had he said something that he shouldn't have? Well, whatever. He'd have to ask Paul about this later. Do you know when my father's meetings will be over? Vierra cocked her head thoughtfully to one side. Well, he does have a whole month's worth of catching up to do at the moment. I expect that he might be very busy for a while. Alright then, when you get a chance, could you let him know that I'm planning on leaving Milshin in 7 days from now? Really? That seems awfully soon. Well, it's what we're used to at this point. I see. In that case, let me get Shierra for you. Just a minute. With that, Vierra pattered off somewhere. A few minutes later, she returned with a familiar robed healer. When the girl saw that he was looking at her, she let a little gasp and stepped behind Vierra. She then spoke up from behind her. The captain's schedule is jam-packed at the moment, but he has some free time in the evening 4 days from now. Would you care to have dinner with him then? He responded, it's alright if he's too busy, you know. But then she said, when he talks about you, the captain's full of life and energy. He's very busy, but I hope that you'll come anyways. Her voice sounded composed enough. Considering she was still hiding behind Vierra, the girl really seemed to hate him. Or maybe even fear him. That was kind of regrettable. But, oh well, 4 days from now, right? Okay then, should I meet him at his inn? I'll make you reservations at a restaurant our squad frequently visits. Please head directly over there instead. Shierra proceeded to calmly provide him with exact location and time. they'd be eating at a place in the commercial district by the name of Lazy Millis. Just to be on the safe side, Rudeus asked about the dress code, but apparently there wasn't one. This felt kind of odd though, like he was scheduling a business meeting with a CEO from some major corporation. Huh, so Paul had a secretary planning out his days now. The guy certainly had come up in the world. Shierra then spoke up. Will you be bringing a companion? Edda's face popped in his mind, but at the same instant, he recalled her shouting, "I'll kill that stupid jerk," as she stormed off to murder Paul. No, I think I'll come alone. With that, they ironed out the detail, and he took his leave. After deciding to take Edda along for the dinner, Rudeus considered asking Vierra advice on what to wear, but didn't feel that they were friendly enough to call in a favor. The place they ate at ended up being quite fancy. Paul ended up apologizing as he felt that Shierra was getting a little carried away for some reason, even though he had told her their usual place would be fine. But she seemed to have other plans. The meal that Rudeus had with Paul and Nora was eventful, but that's a video for another time. And that is Vierra and Shierra of Mushoku Tensei so far. I really do like this segment. This is one of those ones where, as I was reading through the novel series post watching the first season of the anime adaptation, the moment that they got to that point where it actually explains why Vierra is always wearing that outfit, I was like, no way, there's actually a story, and it sucks. It's a super tragic story. But it's sort of like the reality of the world they're in. They've kind of talked about it several times throughout the novel series about the displacement incident. The displacement incident was extremely traumatic experience for so many people. Think about it. Yes, there's warriors, there's mages throughout the world, and yes, most of those people, when they transport to another location, the odds of them surviving is much higher. But then you have all these other people like children, mothers, old folks, all these people that have no way of protecting themselves that are being transported alone, if they're not touching anybody else, to random locations where maybe right in front of a monster, they're dead. Or, again, technically being picked up by random bandits, and yes, reality of the world that has no laws and no restrictions, and just anything can really happen. Yes, these poor women just being taken advantage of and being forced upon, and there's nothing to say otherwise. The reason why it makes so much sense, and why I think in the end, despite the fact that even an explanation is not going to appease some people, just the idea of a bikini warrior, it's objectifying, don't like it, shouldn't exist. The reason why I like it so much is at least it in story context, in the reality of that world, it all makes sense. The idea of the two of them, these sisters, one essentially not being able to get over the situation as well as the other. Granted, it's not to say that Vierra is happy about what happened, it's that she bounced back better. She got strong. And you can make an argument that she got strong for others. And it turns Vierra specifically in such a strong character that she was able to overcome that, able to move forward for the sake of others. And she chooses by her own volition to dress that way in order to shield from other people. I'm going to look this way so that they're not looking at Shierra, because Shierra can't take it. She didn't bounce back like I did. She's not strong enough yet. She's not strong enough yet. And on the opposite end, like I said, I really love Shierra and the idea that she's so freaking smart. Like, this girl is so smart, like so quick. All this information, like ask her anything, and it comes to mind. Oh, I know what that is. Like, who knows how much it's gonna cost to transport a super? She does. Like, she does. Like, Rudeus kind of points out, like, she just says it like it's common knowledge. Like, everybody should know this. Obviously, it's cost this much. She's great to kind of be at Paul's side. The two of them essentially become the pillars that he needs. Granted, yes, when Rudeus first finds him, Paul is not in a good state. There's obviously reasons for that. But at least the two of them kind of accept him in some way. Vierra is there whenever they run into somebody that's a case like her. Somebody that has been just damaged by this whole displacement incident. She's the one that comes up there and comforts them. She knows what they need to hear. She knows how to comfort them and take care of them. And again, shields them. On the opposite end, Shierra is literally like everything he needs. She's there. She has the information. She's keeping his funding. She's basically like an all-around secretary. Like, she handles the money, she handles the schedule, she handles everything. The two of them are so fantastic, and I just love their story, and I cannot wait for more of it. I also get a kick out of the fact that every now and then during this whole segment of these moments with Vierra and Shierra, which I'm highlighting, I like how it's constantly Rudeus misinterpreting the situation. Granted, yes, he doesn't even know why Vierra is dressed that way. That's the obvious thing of confusion that he's having, which you would kind of understand. Why is this girl walking around like that? what is it for Paul? Is it to allure Paul? Girl, you should put some clothes on. Like he literally puts his own thought processes on her. Like, girl, you should probably not dress that way. And it's like, I know what I'm doing. Like, it is one of those moments of like that brief moment of like, it's literally, it's literally the viewer, the outsider that's looking in and going, oh my gosh, that girl should not be dressing that way. It's objectifying women. And it's Rudeus at that moment saying, you should put clothes on. And she's going, no, I'm an adult. I'm choosing to do this. I have my reason for doing this. Don't tell me what to do. But it's more funny the idea that he thinks that Shierra hates him. Like, this girl literally hates me. And this is something that's going through his mind this entire time. Ever since the moment that he fought with Paul, that was the reason why he left the bar. He's seen everybody looking at him, and he recalls his time back in his previous life with everybody demonizing him. And he gets sick to his stomach, and he vomits. Even back at the inn, he's vomiting there because he's getting relapse of his old life and everybody hating him. The thought of going back to talk to Paul and clear up the situation, he doesn't like it because he just thinks about that and he pukes. And this entire time, he just thinks that the reason why Shierra is hiding behind Vierra is because she doesn't like him. And no, it's like, no, it's because she has her own circumstances. She has her own life. That's one of the great things about this writer, is that no character is the way they are because of Rudeus. They're not centered around Rudeus. They all have their lives, their experiences, the things that they're going through. And Refrigeration is really good at kind of laying all that stuff out. But anyways, that is, again, the story of Vierra and Shierra. Hope you guys enjoy this video as always. Like I joked about at the very end there, I really, really badly want to do a video on Norn specifically. I'm just fighting over if I want to do it a story of Paul with Norn, or if I want to do Norn specifically. I might just do their dinner meet together alone, and then maybe do a full-on Norn Paul story over here. But we'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. If you did, make sure that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you think of Vierra and Shierra. Do you like this little extra tidbit of information and seeing how they sort of dynamic with Paul? Definitely let me know. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button, stick on my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, I do a video, skip content video every single Sunday for Mushoku Tensei. And I also do a Mushoku Monday where I go through the novel series, which we are way past the anime at this point. So if you don't worry about spoilers, or if you've read the novel series, definitely check that out. But additionally, if you like this content and you want to support this channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate what it does. It means so much to me, and y'all take care.